Welcome to the Galha Annual Fundraising Lunch 2014. My name's Richard Unwin. I'm the chair of Galha. Thank you all for coming. It is so wonderful to see so many familiar faces here. Our membership, as you know, has shot up recently. We are close to 1,500 members now. But it is you. It's you, our staunch and loyal supporters, that really are the beating heart of Galha. So on behalf of all of the committee, a massive thank you for coming and supporting us yet again. And of course, it's wonderful to welcome new faces into the fold. Some of you might not even be members of Galha. Some of you might have been tempted by our special guest. And that's great. That's the point. That's the plan. You won't be allowed to leave without signing up, though. There is literature on the tables, there's leaflets and newsletters. Please do have a look, and feel free to come and talk to me or any of the members of the committee who are here. There's Mary Porter here, Mike Kitto. Yay, applaud Mary Porter. There's Paul Graham over here. Applaud Paul Graham. And there's Mike Kitto, our new finance officer, over here. And I'd also like to thank Andrew Copson, who's the Chief Executive of the British Humanist Association, and the entire BHA. Yeah, woo! We became a section of the BHA in, was it 2012? It feels like forever. I think it was 2012. But it was absolutely the right move to make. We haven't looked back, and we benefited hugely from the relationship with the BHA, Andrew and the whole staff. Now, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce our very special guest for the afternoon. He's acted in and written for some of the very best television of our age. He's also a star of the big screen and the stage, as well as being an accomplished novelist. He's both written for and appeared in two of television's biggest hitters at the moment, Doctor Who and Sherlock. Yay! He's part of the award-winning League of Gentlemen team. He's appeared in Game of Thrones, Being Human, Bright Young Things, Nighty Night, Horrible History. Basically anything that's been good on telly, he's in. When you see his name attached to a project, you know that it's going to be quality. And it's my great pleasure to award the Galha LGBT Humanists Award 2014 to Mark Gatiss. Yay! Thank you very much. Oh, I think you have to turn the button on the box.
Oh my God.
Sorry, do you want me to...
I've got two mics.
We need to turn Mark on.
Does that work? Yes! Oh no, it's like Wotan. I'll turn it off.
Should we share this one?
That was briefly exciting. Thank you very much. I'm not going to do a speech.
No.
Because we're going to have a chat. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for this. I'm very honoured and humbled. And obviously I'm bait, I've discovered. That's why I'm here. But yeah, it's an extraordinary thing to be given this. I think we're living in very interesting times, as the old Chinese curse says, for everyone in this community and around the world. I think there's an awful lot of battles that have been won and an awful lot which we assume have been won. And it's a strange sort of febrile atmosphere at the moment. Lots of 2 steps forward, 1 step back in terms of equality and gay marriage. It's a very strange feeling in the world at the moment. As I said on Twitter only the other day, I'm led more and more to the inescapable conclusion that what this country needs is a good war. Anyway, we'll have a chat now.
Interesting. Order! Mark, thank you very much for being with us, because we know how busy you are. I'm a Doctor Who fan, so I remember you from way back. But you came to real public prominence in 1999 with the League of Gentlemen, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me?
That's good.
That's fine.
Yes.
Good. So you've had a hell of a career since then. That was 15 years ago. Being a gay man in television, how has that changed? Was that a help or a hindrance back in 99? Is it different now?
Well, I've never been in, and that was that was never a big sort of political thing for me. I just it never occurred to me to try and pretend I wasn't gay. I mean, obviously, I've never been up for or got close to playing sort of romantic leads, so that was never a consideration for me. But I always thought, I just want to be happy. And I know a few actors who still wrestle with the notion of coming out because they think it'll damage their careers. And all I ever sort of say to people is, you've just got to think long term, do you want to be a happy human being? And some of them obviously don't. And it's a very pervasive thing. There are lots of big Hollywood names we could name in private around these tables who still can't come out, even though the entire world knows that they're gay, pretty much because the system that they are part of will not allow them to be, even though they're not actually playing big romantic leads, etc. Maybe they're from a generation where it was just so impossible to do it. They can't get over that final hurdle. But I think particularly with young people, someone like Zachary Quinto, who plays Mr. Spock in the Star Trek films, for him to come out, that's extremely brave. And who knows, it may actually not work for him, but I think he'll just be a happier person for it.
Is that different in America to here, or?
I think so, yes. I mean, I think I have very little experience of the American studio system, but it's such a monster. They are in every respect incredibly ruthless. They're like, they're like sharks. They have to keep going, and they chew people up and spit them out. In every respect, they are like sharks. They have black eyes, like a doll's eyes, and I think it's just absolutely incredibly hard over there. Over here, things are just much more relaxed here. They are. Yeah. They always have been. I think Americans have this amazing work ethic, and we have a work ethic here, but we also want to sort of enjoy ourselves a bit more. So I think it's definitely tougher over there. But even so, I know I have a friend who was advised by his agent only a few years ago not to come out, and it's here, yeah. And I was very depressed by that, because you sort of think, well, we're never going to make any progress if that sort of attitude persists.
Well, talking of progress, I mean, has it changed since you've been in the industry?
I mean,
not just coming out, but the getting gay characters into work, dealing with executives.
Yes, I mean, I would say, as a viewer, obviously we've all noticed huge changes. I think for me, it's very difficult, this, because it's all tied up with Blair and what's happened subsequently. We can all blame Blair for everything now, and because of course he's gone mad, as we can all see. He is a madman now. And everything about Iraq has sort of stained the fact that 97 Labour government did an incredible amount. I mean, it's not. I remember sitting down outside Parliament in '94 for the age of consent debates, and Ian McKellen came out and told us about Blair's speech, and it didn't go through, and and then only a few years later, it changed. A lot has changed in this country. We're obviously not there yet, but an awful lot more than you might think has changed. So we're all aware of how much more visible gay people are across the spectrum. But to me, the difficult part is, and I feel very strongly about this, is trying to get past that thing of having to do issue-based drama. I mean, I can still remember and probably name alphabetically the play for today's, which were about being gay or being transsexual. I used to seek them out like a heat-seeking gay missile. And, they were seared into my memory. But that was because they were issue plays. And it's a real bit of progress to not have to do that. You don't have to do a coming out play necessarily in that sort of way. There are just lots of regular characters in soaps particularly. And what's really good about that is then you're allowed to have a gay person who isn't very nice. A gay person who is extremely camp. I know Anthony Cotton in Coronation Street got an awful lot of stick because his character is very camp, as if there aren't camp gay people, And But
the time when they were all.
But that's the problem. That's the problem. And as soon as you have more light and shade, you don't have to carry the torch for absolutely everything. And to me, that's where sort of art dies, because if you end up just ticking boxes in order to try and move something forward, you're not actually doing it to serve the story. There are, instances, for my money, too many gay people in Coronation Street now. I think there are. I think there are, because they used to, in the old days, essentially all the gay men were actually old ladies. And there's a sort of current of very camp humour in Coronation Street, which has somehow been slightly leavened out by having that many gay characters. That's just my opinion.
You've covered the answers to quite a few questions there.
Good night.
Do you think, do gay performers and writers, do they have a responsibility to come out?
I think this is very difficult. We've got past that sort of, for me, that militant time when it was very much people were being pushed in that way. I don't know. I can only speak as an individual. I find that slightly fascistic myself. I think all you can do is try and convince people by force of logical argument that it's better to be out than in, and for the sake of themselves and for everybody else to just be honest, especially in a difficult climate. But I think if you force people out, then it's like you're forcing them to do anything. I don't like being forced to do anything, and it's a matter of individual conscience and individual thought. The danger is you're legislating someone's sexuality and personality and their individual decision. I would much rather try and sit down with someone and say, for me, these are the reasons why you're fooling yourself and you're public, etc. But I'm not very comfortable with that sort of outing people.
No, not. Going back to the portrayal of LGBT characters over the years on television, how that's changed, especially in shows that you've been involved with, specifically when Doctor Who came back in 2005, Russell T Davies, who of course was responsible for Queer as Folk before that, he put quite a lot of gay characters in what is essentially a children's programme, that's arguable, and he was accused by the media
Point of order.
of having a gay agenda. Did you know Russell, presumably? Does he have a gay agenda?
I would say yes, only in the sense that he wants to make television representative of the world we all live in. So I've thought for a very long time that the real triumph would come when you do an ITV detective series, and 25 minutes after it starts, the lead character goes home and he's married to another man, or she goes home and she's married to another woman, and nobody says a thing, because then it's just become normalized. I think Russell was definitely just trying to make the texture of the show representative of the world, and obviously it's the Daily Mail who are going to suddenly get completely panicky about some sort of terrifying gay agenda which will turn the world gay. And all he was really doing was saying, just making lots of incidental characters gay. There's a lovely bit in Gridlock. Yeah, there's a couple of old ladies who are it's just lovely. And that's the way to do it, I think, as Mr. Punch used to say. I think that's the way to do it, is to just do it casually, scatter people around, and just not an issue. Now, equally, there's a danger there that if you don't have anyone within that drama who has a problem with it, you're not being realistic. You're not actually trying, because obviously a lot of people do. But I think that, to me, that's the really interesting and progressive way to try and change things, is to just make it more straightforward.
And do you know, was there any resistance from the hierarchy, from the BBC?
Not as far as I know, no. I mean, I think, just slightly off topic, but the reason that Russell's reinvention was so successful is because they completely allowed him to do it his own way, and that there's no committee there. Committees kill things, so except this one. So that's why they just completely gave him his head, and it works.
That links into a question which I was going to ask a bit later, but if the job came up, would you like to take over as showrunner for Doctor Who?
That's not a question for this. I don't think about this. To honestly, I'm very happy and very busy doing what I'm doing. I'm almost a little too busy, actually.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm about to write a new Doctor Who, which is going to take me a long time, so I'm quite happy with thank you.
Excellent. Game of
I can see a question here in ink. It says straights playing gays.
Okay, let's
That's actually a Christmas game for later.
Because it's not okay for a white actor to black up and play ethnic minorities, but it is still okay, I think, for straights to play gays. Are we going to reach a point where it's not?
Well, it's interesting you asked me that, because I was filming an orgy on Friday with Ben Whishaw. Yes, I know. They call it work. And I said, before we started, I said to Ben, are we gay men playing gay men? And he said, yes, we are. And actually, I can't think of anything recently. I was really suddenly very struck by it. I thought, that's interesting. So there we are. I mean, all the guys in Queer as Folk are straight, as far as we know. That's 15 years ago. Russell's new show, Cucumber, which starts next year, I think the lead is gay. I don't know. It's a vexed question again. It's whether you feel you are shutting down the possibilities as an actor by not allowing someone to do it. But then you know how you respond as a punter. My partner Ian and I went to see a show a few years ago, which I won't name, in which the lead actor was showered with accolades for playing a gay man, and we just thought he looked like a big hulking straight man in stilettos plonking around. Everybody around us was sort of creased up with laughter, and we were going, I really can't see this. So I don't know.
I mean, and the same thing comes up with trans issues and cross-dressing. Some trans people are offended by any cross-dressing, from panto dames. I understand their point of view. I don't necessarily agree with it. Have you had any? Because you've obviously in League of Gentlemen you've cross-dressed quite a lot. Has that ever come up? Have people said, "I'm offended by that"? Please
no,
don't do that.
Never. I mean, they could well. No one's ever said that to me. I played a transsexual on stage at the Old Vic a few years ago, and I spoke to a lot of transsexuals, and then we had one incredible evening where half the audience had come, sort of like charabanc, and it was so moving. Their response to the show was extraordinary. But I think it's just terribly reductive. If you start to get into a world where you can only do this because then you're literally talking about, sometimes you'd end up in a situation where you have literally a handful of actors who could play a part. It's a bit like Australia. Everything I'm saying is controversial somehow. But you have that would be ridiculous if you were to say you could never play a cross-dresser because you're not one, But then it's nuanced. That's the thing, and the argument goes in all stages from Olivier blacking up down to, unless you identify as queer in the acronym, then you can't play that part. And I just find it reductive myself.
You have written a trilogy of very successful novels about Lucifer Box, who is, he's a gay secret. Oh no, he's bi.
He's bi.
He's bi.
Yeah.
Did you think? I love those books, by the way.
Thank you.
When you were creating Lucifer Box, did you think that was something that was missing, a gay action hero? Because he's an action hero, essentially.
Sort of, yes, I did, yeah. I mean, I sort of wanted to write a kind of gay James Bond, as it were, or by James Bond. It was and I did think, should he just be gay, but I sort of thought it's just much more interesting. The whole point of his characters is just very fluid, and in every respect, I find those sort of characters more interesting. when we devised Sherlock as a modern day show, the only kind of resistance we got from the BBC really was lots of emails saying he's not very nice, is he? And you go, well, no, that's why people like him. So to have a character like Lucifer Box, who is sort of just, polysexual, it certainly opens up, in terms of plot, there's a lot more to play with, but it's just also much more interesting, and it doesn't, you don't have to nail yourself down in that way.
The other massive thing you're in at the moment is Game of Thrones.
Only a tiny bit.
Which is one of the very few American shows that seems just as comfortable showing pretty explicit gay sex, as well as straight sex and bisexual sex. Is that an aberration, or is that the way things are going?
It's just a mucky show.
Well, that also made me think, in Russell's Queer as Folk, which was what, 10 years ago or
15.
15. There were some pretty graphic rimming scenes with a 15-year-old boy. Do you think that would be broadcast on the BBC now? Have we got a bit more prudish? I'm not sure they'd show that.
I don't know. I mean, Game of Thrones is kind of quite full on in every way. The violence is so. I mean, it's made for a subscription channel, and then it's shown on Sky, so it's still a subscription thing. Queer as Folk was on Channel 4. Cucumber is going to be Channel 4. I think it'll be very explicit. I wouldn't think so. I think in some ways we've sort of become slightly more careful about that sort of thing, but I don't know. It's always a question for the broadcaster. That's the thing that people never quite get their heads around. Is when you devise something, there are lots of people. There's a thing called Ed Paul, who I used to think was a person. I was always to me, it's editorial policy. Who is this Ed Paul? I hate him. And, we had this thing when Moriarty blows the back of his head off. People go, well, he's obviously not dead because you didn't see the back of his head come off. Also, it was broadcast at 8:30. And that's the reason that you don't see the back of his head come off, etc. And there are loads of those kind of rules and strictures in place which really never sort of filter through to the general public, I think. So I'm sure that all kinds of hoops have had to be gone through with sex scenes, but I think because Game of Thrones is subscription, it's a voluntary thing. You say I want to watch this, and that they've gone as far as they want to go.
So do you think that television has a moral responsibility, and if so, whose morals? I mean, do you think can it be used as a tool to fight homophobia, transphobia, racism? Should it just be? I'm talking about drama here, really.
Not CBeebies.
Although, I mean, Russell was going to have the boy in Sarah Jane Adventures come out and be the first gay character on CBeebies, but sadly the show was cancelled. What's the line between entertaining and educating? Is there one? Should there be one? Or should it just be to entertain?
For me, it should be there to entertain, and what you do as you entertain is why you're there. So I think if you set out with a ledger like this, full of a mission statement, you're not going to make the program you want to make. You're going to be trying desperately to tick boxes to please everybody. But if you can smuggle things in, and I think that's what all successful art has done, and television drama over the years, if you smuggle things in, whether it's a point of some sort of interesting piece of history, or something you never knew about someone famous, or that sort of thing, or it's like having a kind of agenda that is democratic. It's not trying to shove something down someone's throat. I'm sorry about that. I knew it was going to happen at one stage. But by doing it in more subtle ways, I think that's the way to do it. So, of course it can. Of course it can fight homophobia. Of course it can fight racism. If you simply show an average school in which a third of the pupils are white, a third of them are Asian, and 4 of them are gay, as representative of, if there was Grange Hill or something now, then you are saying this is what the world's like. Now, some parents might watch that and think what they're trying to do, but they probably find that when their kids are watching it, they say, "Oh, that's my school is like that." Or It may be a slightly more idealized version, but it's something to aspire to. But I think it's not, it's the difference really between having a show called Waterloo Road and having a show called Gay School or something, where you actually, you're not trying to colour it in and just make it all fit. Because it'll just be boring. And more than anything, the worst crime of any drama is to be boring. And I think you can do the most amazing things across the spectrum of channels and different genre, really, to just throw open the toy box. And you can shock people, and you can make people laugh, you can make people cry, you can do all kinds of things. But what you're trying to get across is it's about being sympathetic and kind. That's what it's about. You're not trying to push an agenda in that way. You're just trying to say life is massive and varied and wonderful and full of eccentrics, and this person is, this person doesn't have to wear a hat saying I am right all the time. I can be an individual character full of flaws like everybody who's watching the program.
Do you worry at all that there's a danger of, as we get more and more rights, of cultural assimilation? Is there a danger that we might lose that sort of special gay corner of culture that's out there and we've called our own for ages as we become more and more like the normal folk? Is there a danger?
I think that is an argument that I completely hear, but I think it's a very metropolitan one. Mm-hmm. I think you don't have to go very far outside of London to discover that it's not like that. And, there is a lot to be said for that. I think that the kind of recriminalization argument, it was more fun during the war, that sort of thing. There's something about, there is a sort of frisson, there's something about any movement which was once banned, once it becomes assimilated, it loses its... I think, absolutely, to be honest, I think that's why some gay people are living their lives currently in a slightly accelerated, rather suicidal way. There's a strange thing, again, in the feeling in the atmosphere of people kind of trying to... people have gone through AIDS and become extremely responsible, and then a new generation has grown up without that threat, who are becoming more hedonistic than the people from the 70s, it feels to me. Not from my personal experience, I hasten to add, but I'm aware of this, and it's very alarming. And I think it's assimilation, in a way, should be the great goal. But then, if you're sort of saying, well, I want to be just like everybody else, then you're denying the thing that makes you feel special when you're growing up. And it's true. We all know it's true. And I think that whenever I read about people trying to legislate in various countries around the world, in Iran or whatever, to try and eliminate gay people, you think about all the incredible things that gay people bring to culture everywhere, not just the arts, but, looking at the Alan Turing film. I mean, that man won the war. He took 2 years off the war. If he hadn't been as bizarre as he was, not just because he was gay, but because his entire autistic mind was so incredible, if the regime he was trying to defeat had been in power, he would have been exterminated. That's very important to remember, that gay people contribute hugely more than just telling funny stories at a dinner party, which is in fact my only achievement.
At that point, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Are there any questions from the floor, as it were?
Yes. Well, it is obviously it's a gay humanist gathering. So
is it?
Yes.
I thought this was the Dracula Society.
It feels like that. What have you got to say about, in your experience, the role of religion, either in your own sort of upbringing or in this country and the world, as regards gay rights? Or is that the sort of extra dimension that we've reached?
Well, I was brought up with in a kind of lemonade week C of E environment. It's funny to think that now. Actually, I went back to my old primary school recently because my sister-in-law works there now, and it's got much more Jesus-y, which I found very disturbing. I mean, it was there, but only in a kind of Jerusalem-y kind of way when I was growing up. But there's loads of stuff all over the walls, and it's become much more. I mean, it's about trying to get kids into schools, isn't it? I was a bit disturbed by that, I have to say. But from a personal point of view, I love going to Christmas Carol concerts. I get vaguely weepy at Jerusalem, things like that. Can't help it. But I think religion is a terrible thing. Organized religion is the cause of virtually all the misery in the world. And the more it is wheeled out as a gavel to smash people over the head, the more it sickens me. The more the fact that you can have someone like Anne Widdecombe saying that the Catholic Church has apologized enough for an ongoing abuse scandal, which the true dimensions of which we will never know. I think it makes me feel physically sick. A friend of mine went to St. Peter's a few years ago, and he had to run out of St. Peter's because he felt physically sick at the disgusting display of wealth. And of course, people they trot out the argument. It's too simplistic to say, well, melt it down and give it to the poor. It doesn't matter about that. It's just the principle of it. It's so perverted from whatever it was. However, whatever you think about it, the basic tenets of the Bible are pretty sound. But it's so far away from that. You just don't know what to. Where do you start with? We have you have a quite nice old man being Pope, who, because he doesn't wear the gold and because he lives in a smaller apartment, is a fucking saint. And it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. Whereas if he would be really radical, of course they'd kill him, but if he were to be really radical, he would say, right, it's over. It's over. Use condoms. Don't die of AIDS, Africa. Don't die of AIDS, all of Africa, please. This is obscene. What's it got to do with this book? What's it got to do with Jesus Christ? It's over. But it would never happen. And in fact, so just by being a teeny bit less of a monster than his Nazi predecessor, he becomes a saint as far as the Catholics are concerned. Anyway, in terms of religion and being gay, I think it's it's shaded. It's different across the world, isn't it? But again, I think it's very, very frightening how. I have an idea. I was going to pitch this series once. It was going to be on where the epilogue used to be, 5 to midnight, and it's called "Did I Miss a Meeting?" And it would just be me like this, getting very angry about all the things I thought we'd done this one. I thought we'd done evolution. Did I miss a meeting? And it's just every day there is a new thing which I thought was off the table, and it's just back on. Properly medieval attitudes, which we used to laugh about, are just back. And there are entire cultures and political regimes which are celebrating them as a legitimate way of being. One of the things I find actually frightening about people's love affair with China is that it is an active, successful police state which looks to a lot of the world like a good way of living. It's really frightening. And the more people want to say, we've got to trade with them. It doesn't matter about that. It doesn't matter about human rights. It's fine. The more there are certain sections of business who's thinking, well, this is good, isn't it? Why don't we do this? Why bother with democracy? Next question.
You mentioned the Alan Turing film. What's your opinion about the Queen's posthumous pardon?
What took her so long? Well, I didn't. I'm very glad that happened. I feel a bit ambivalent about those sort of things, like the American government having to apologize for slavery. It's so far on from the people responsible, it becomes quite a strange thing. I mean, I think it's correct, but I'd much rather they hadn't singled out Turing. That's to me still a battle that needs to be won. It seems crazy that a blanket pardon, that would be real progress and real historical address. There's something a bit icky about choosing the most famous one. It feels a bit sort of token to me. But again, we've made progress that can be done in the House of Commons without having the Monday Club at the back sniggering behind their hands or something like that, because everyone knows it's correct, and they do, I think, even except maybe Nigel Farage. That's progress, I think. But ultimately, I think it should be much more across the board.
Sorry. As you said, it's so far detached. I served as a military policeman for some years, and we did a lot of crimes checks. People were still serving as senior officers at NCOs, and of course it was still the military from the Army Act 55, so homosexuality was a military offence. And it's still on their record. You look someone up for, might be a suspect of burglary, maybe an RSM, who was still on the record referred to homosexuality back in 1990.
Wow.
And that's all still there for evidence.
Well, I mean, that's a test case, isn't it? In a way, you want someone to point that out and say, well, that's got to be stricken from the record, because if they still think it's worthy of inclusion, it still means they've got a problem with it. Gosh, it used to be a Christmas tree at the BBC, apparently, for anything vaguely left-wing. They used to put a Christmas tree on your file. Not a real one. Really obvious who they... Yes.
I heard the other day that there's a very cheap kind of smartphone coming out, and then in 5 or 10 years' time, 90% of the world will have access to extremely cheap phones, and they'll be able to look at the internet and therefore read sensible things about how about the earth and the world. Do you think that that'll be a good thing and that people will use it to educate themselves, or? I suppose that's not really an either-or question, but I mean, do you think that's a positive thing, or do you think it will make the sort of medievalism even worse? Because people want to see even more.
I think the danger, and I've been prone to it myself over the years, the danger is to imagine that the world is just spiraling down the toilet. It's always in the state of total chaos. It's always terrible and unfair, with tiny moments of kindness and fairness, but and equally, you can sort of fetishize the idea that people are getting more and more stupid. People have always been stupid, but the brilliant thing is, access to the world's knowledge has never been more easy, and that's fantastic. So the internet as a tool of democracy is absolutely extraordinary. I want to save libraries as much as anybody. But if the world demands that we move from paper to digital, then there's no point in fighting it. You might as well throw your sabot into the loom. It's moving on. And it's thrilling to think that you can just Google something which you would have had to spend weeks trying to research. Of course, the other side of it is that you look that thing up and you're not sure it's true. And you realize that in a very Orwellian sense, the past is becoming entirely mutable. I was just saying, that thing last week with Black Friday, I saw an advert that said, Curry's biggest Black Friday ever. And I thought, also your first. And they were trying to tell us that this is a tradition. It's like, no, it's not. And all I could have in the back of my head was, we have always been at war with East Asia. And there's a lot of that about. I mean, and people, redacting their history from, it's really sinister. So it's both an incredible tool for democracy, and particularly, I think, for regimes which are trying to stop it. It's impossible. It's like putting the genie back in the bottle. That's brilliant. You have an oppressive regime, and suddenly the very kids they're trying to stop have all actually already arranged on Facebook where they're going to meet. There's nothing that those fat old generals can do about it. That's exciting. And as I say, in terms of information and education, it's incredible. But it's also, it's a dangerous thing because you can tamper with it and you can put other things into people's heads. But mostly it's for porn, so... Young people have a lot of pressure to come out. A lot of pressure to come out, or when they come out. Well, that's a good question. I'm no longer young. Well, I think it's, again, it feels to me, sometimes it feels a bit of a metropolitan thing. It's easy to imagine that all the battles are won and that everybody is, able to just click on an app and meet the person of their dreams and stuff like that. And that is obviously, again, that's changed enormously. I knew, when I was at school, I knew one other gay person, two people I had suspicions about, and I was right. Whereas next, take that, please. If I'd been able to go online, I would have been able to meet all kinds of people, which is, in retrospect, would have been amazing. Also, maybe slightly terrifying. I don't know. I might have done something I'd regretted. Again, I think there's I don't know if it's a pressure. You can sort of imagine that people are simply by watching people on TV and feeling more comfortable with it. Ian and I, a friend of ours who was struggling a few years ago with coming out to his mother, and there was a story on The Archers, would you believe, in which one of the characters came out in one of those polytunnels. It's a strange metaphor for something, I don't know what it was. But he found it genuinely brilliant because he had a point of contact with his mother, which was The Archers. And they listened to it together, and then he was able to say it, which is fantastic. And so when things like that in popular culture are easily accessible and you can identify a positive role model, that's hugely important, hugely important. So I can't really speak about the pressure, I don't know. I think it's probably slightly easier simply because there are more visible gay people around, not just in drama, but just in the world. But it's never easy because it's always an individual experience.
So I see that you're wearing a World AIDS Day ribbon. So I was interested in...
It's just a poppy that comes up.
Yeah. I'm interested in your opinion about, do you think people are too, I guess people would say that maybe not concerned enough about HIV or not aware even, and two, what your opinion of PrEP is. I don't know much about PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis.
No, I don't.
So it's a pill that's available in the US.
Yeah.
Take a very high success rate of preventing HIV. I wondered if you had much of an opinion on whether that should be made available in the UK, it's currently ongoing trial in the UK, and how you see that, I don't know, changing gay life in ways that can, essentially prevent HIV transmission.
Well, God, that's a very involved thing because it's... the obvious equivalent is the pill, isn't it? But trying to protect yourself against a disease is obviously the thing to aim for. That's you're putting a condom on. That's what you're trying to stop happening. But this feels to me there's something about that which it feels a bit like the easy option. I might then go and expose myself to a much more dangerous situation because I think this pill is going to stop me from getting it. But it's a lifestyle thing, isn't it? I was talking to a friend only last night about that book, The Velvet Rage, and all kinds of stuff that he's been... It's odd this happened just last night before I came here, but he's been doing lots of research for a book about HIV and about, as I was saying earlier, about the current climate, which is becoming extraordinarily hedonistic. Lots of people... There's all kinds of drugs and terms I don't even know what they mean, but lots of men particularly injecting themselves, and they go to things called... not flooding or something, some slamming parties, yeah, things like that. It's just extraordinary. So, as I say, I think something's happened where, almost inevitably, but going through a big physical crisis in the 80s and 90s, the next generation is always going to weirdly kick against whatever it is. And that seems to be what's happening at the moment. I think it's very important just to keep pushing the message home. Thank God we've got through that time, of having enormous tombstone adverts and stuff like that. But it's amazing how many people just don't really know about HIV, or they just just dismiss it. But then that's kind of part of being young, isn't it? All young people think they're immortal. That's it. So I think all you can try and do really is to make the educational message as attractive as possible, and not be so didactic that they switch off the way they would if you were trying to tell them to put a seatbelt on or something like that.
But there's also obviously.
I didn't ask you. Go on. Yes. Absolutely, yes, yeah, because that pill is not going to stop you from getting all kinds of other things. I'll tell this story because it'll turn your hair very briefly. A friend of mine, his brother, who was just very, very active, came home last Christmas and he had a pain in his groin and conjunctivitis. And my friend, who was his brother, said, I think it's gonorrhea. And they looked it up on the internet, and it was. And he went to the doctor, and he had gonorrhea in his eyes. And the doctor sat him down and said, "You will almost certainly have to take them out." And they pumped him full of antibiotics, and they saved it. He's got a slight sort of crazing in one of the eyes. They saved his eyes. But 97% of cases, they literally have to take. They can't. It's not just about being blind. They take them out. And the doctor said, only last week, I had to sit a 16-year-old boy down. It's his first sexual experience, and he had to remove his eyes. I mean, again, it's terrifying, isn't it? But that's sort of that's the sort of thing we need to, without doing the Tombstone adverts. I mean, there's something as shocking as that, and you think that could happen so easily. And it's just about, it's sex education generally. That's why, there's a thing, some Tory MP the other day, they get back on their old Daily Mail horse saying it's disgusting and children shouldn't be taught this, and you think, for fuck's sake, they should be taught this from the cradle. It's so dangerous out there. So, yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
For spending time with us this afternoon. A huge round of applause.
Thank you.
For Mark Gatiss.